Hi, I'm Luke. Today on Auto Darts, we are checking out the Nerf Hyper Mach-100. This is the brand new flagship of the Hyper series. Let's get going. For those of you just tuning into the channel, this is a Nerf modding channel and I run a Nerf modding hobby shop. And we take apart blasters, upgrade them, we sell all the parts, tools, supplies, and accessories to upgrade your arsenal. So when a new line comes out like the Hyper line, we are always really excited here at Out of Darts because it's an opportunity to play with new blasters and really get to dive into this new ammo type. When the rival blasters came out about 5.5 years ago, I jumped on them like crazy from the start. I made blasters like the Hurricane out of the Zeus, which was a tube-fed 108 round blaster with an air-fed system to feed it. I also designed a Proton Pack, which is a backpack-fed blaster that holds up to, unlimited amount of ammo, as much as you can carry. So I've been a big fan of the Rival series from the start, but the Rival series has been out now for quite a few years, and it definitely seems like we've kind of hit the end of the cycle where they're sort of running out of ideas. And that is where Hyper enters. Hyper is a new ammo type. It is much smaller. It is a different type of rubber. The rubber appears to be much more durable. These are extremely squishy and bouncy. A little bit more on that later. We'll also talk about the ammo specifically in another video, so do subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. The Mach-100 is a 100-round capacity blaster, full auto flywheel Hyper blaster. It is very, very similar to the rival Percy's. We'll compare it a little bit later here, but it is ultimately a very similar blaster in that it's a fully automatic blaster. You rev and fire. The blaster runs on 6 D-sized batteries, so it's got a fairly large form factor, and it's a pretty heavy blaster overall. That's a total of 9 volts running these slightly higher power flywheels compared to the motors that you'll see in traditional Nerf stock blasters. Overall, the blaster feels very solid. Ergonomically, I think it's a very good blaster. The grip is plenty comfy, though I will say I generally prefer the grip on the Percy's a little bit better. It just contours and fits my hand a little bit. It also has a little bit more breathing room here for my fingers. But again, your mileage may vary because this is just for my adult large hands. I do think that regardless of your hand size, you'll be able to hold this blaster very comfortably. And the stock trigger is definitely better than the stock trigger on the Percy's as far as comfort. I wasn't a huge fan on the Percy's original triggers, so we offered upgrade triggers, and I just thought those could use improvement. These definitely feel better, though we still might play with that in the future as well. The blaster fires this new ammo, which is one of the biggest advantages of this system. You get to fit more rounds on board. This blaster can hold 100 rounds, but only comes with 80. I can only assume, because they've done this on the entire lineup, that this is a cost-saving measure to actually cut the retail price down or to increase profit. Pick one. It's really ultimately the same thing. That said, this blaster does come in at $70 compared to the Percy's, which came in at $100. I think it's a very, very competitive offering at that price point. The Percy's did include a rechargeable battery, but whether $30 is worth the rechargeable battery difference, that really is going to be up to the consumer. I think for someone that's not going to mod the blaster, the rechargeable battery that's included with the Percy's is a much, much better value, because just buying 6 Ds for this was like $10 or more, and that's if you're buying bulk and you get a whole bunch at the same time. Now, you could go through those pretty quickly if you were playing with this frequently. So I do think from a modder's perspective, if you're going to modify and open this up, it's actually a better value because you don't end up with this extra rechargeable pack that you're never going to use anymore. I mean, I went so far as to actually sell off all the rechargeable packs that I got with the Percy's that I have because I put LiPo batteries in all of them. So if you are going to upgrade this, I think that extra $30 off the price point is pretty much a good deal. But for the average consumer, I think it's kind of a bummer that it doesn't have the rechargeable pack, and there's definitely not an option because inside the battery door is just a standard normal battery door. We are going to be working on an adapter for that. We are going to have a full mod guide for this blaster. I'll be cracking this guy open as soon as I'm done with this video, and cannot wait to really dive in and see what this thing does when it's upgraded. Since it's running on 9 volts, I think it's going to take a 12 volt 3S LiPo very well. All of the rival blasters in the past have done just fine on 3S, so I expect this should do fine. The styling is super, super cool. I love this, really aggressive look. There are some nice touches on the mold. The molding has got this sort of fake carbon fiber texture on both the grip, the foregrip, and the side panels. And that actually has to be cut into the mold to actually get that texture. And the mold cycles don't last as long, meaning the tool itself doesn't last as long over time generally because that will wear out. And so that definitely costs more to produce, which gives this a more premium feel compared to other offerings. We're also seeing that there is paint on both sides, which I think is very cool, and the color scheme is really rad. It very much reminds me of like sort of, I don't know, 90s cyberpunk kind of thing. Or a 90s cyberpunk envisioning the future. Maybe I should be wearing my Cyberstrike shirt. Future video. Performance-wise, the blaster is getting actually in our tests above what is advertised on the box. On the box, they're now giving us some realistic metrics of 110 FPS. In my initial tests, it looks like we were getting around 115, so it was definitely beating the actual claim on the box. And I have a consistent, reliable chronograph setup. We do a 20-shot average. We'll put the numbers on the screen so you get an actual real average rather than just my ballpark of firing 10 or so shots off before the video. Also included in the box is a much welcome addition of eye protection. These glasses are very comfortable. They look like standard safety glasses. They're a little bit larger. I would assume these are not actually safety glasses, so I would not recommend you use these for woodworking or any shop use. But for these rival rounds, they're going to be well used and a very good option. The velocity that these come out, they do sting a little bit at very close quarters, and I think upgraded even more so. So I do think eye protection is a must. Also sold separately in this series is a Hyper Mask, which is a sort of paintball style mask. It's got a little rubber inside here rather than foam like a lot of paintballs do. I don't find this to be especially comfortable. It also doesn't have optically pure glass, so looking through this is a little distorted, a little wavy. It's not really ideal. However, the price point on this mask is fairly low at 20 United States dollars. Compared to a paintball mask, you could spend $50 or $60 on a good paintball mask with a different level of protection. So you can't expect too much from this price point, and I think it's a good addition for younger kids that are playing where you might want to avoid getting hit in the mouth or the face or nose or ears, that sort of thing. Also available are these reload pods. These are another nod to paintball, and we've been selling pods on the shop for a while for Rival. I even designed this hopper for the Perseus with a lid mouth that is large enough to dump a paintball pod in because it really helped with loading quite a bit. While I would personally prefer to wear these in a pod pack coming from the paintball world, these are designed in a way that they can attach to the base of the blaster if I got used to actually attaching them. And I think if I was doing that with 2 hands, not too bad. I do like the bottom placement one, however, I would never place this in practice up on top. I think it would just be a little impractical because it's totally blocking my view and it's not giving me any ammo I can use immediately. So I could see putting the one down here maybe. This is one of the better uses of these pods. And you are definitely going to want these with the rate of fire that you're going to see out of this blaster. That leads me to the downsides of this blaster. The first issue is performance. The feed rate on this blaster is very inconsistent and could not hold a candle to the Perseus, especially in its stock configuration. I find that the blaster stutters a lot, fires 2 rounds at once frequently, and generally just has a lot of problems feeding. So much so that every other time I try to use it, I seem to be having problems with it, including the very first time that I fired it for the opening of this video. We actually had to refilm that, and at the end of the video, there'll probably be a blooper of me being like, what is going on here? But let's just do it again. We've got a quarter full hopper here. There's probably about 35 rounds in there, so about half the capacity that comes with the blaster. And that was actually that was probably one of the better exchanges we've got out of the blaster. So it does seem that, keeping the blaster only half full is definitely preferred. And you're going to want to occasionally give these shakes around. You can see right off the bat there, I kind of got 2, and they almost went through the flywheels at the same time. They went 2 different directions. And you'll probably see some of this in the firing demo we'll try to show here in the footage around the warehouse, but it generally tends to stutter and the reaction time on the trigger is pretty slow. Now, it is running off of standard D batteries, so I think this will all be improved when we upgrade these, but in stock configuration, that's what we're evaluating on this video. That should give you a feel for actual fire rate. I'll put up on the screen here an actual count of kind of the peak fire rate there. We'll count using the frames and seconds to actually get a feel for what that is. To me, it seems like it's probably about 6 to 9 rounds a second, probably 8 rounds a second is a good guess, but it is somewhat inconsistent. And if you at all overfill the hopper or even put the full amount of what is supposed to hold 100 rounds, it certainly has issues firing. So it's something to keep in mind because these rounds are very tacky and sticky. I think they cause quite a few feeding issues. The next issue is the accuracy itself. The two springers in this series, the Mach-40 and the Siege 50, seem to be much, much more accurate than the flywheel blaster. I did notice that my flywheels specifically are out of alignment by at least 2 millimeters. The way this works is you've got two flywheels like these that are spinning, and the ball goes through the center, of course, and gets crushed between. But the two in mine, and I'm exaggerating, they're misaligned like this by 2 millimeters that direction. And that's, of course, an eyeball, but it seems odd that it would be like this. However, we've definitely seen manufacturing things like this on the Ultra 2 and the Ultra Amp. The effective range of this blaster, despite shooting a little bit farther than a stock rival blaster, is definitely lower because of that accuracy issue. And the Hyper Mach-100 does not feature a hop-up, so there is no unifying the ball spin, and that may also impact the accuracy. I will be testing hop-ups, and that's something we're definitely going to look at as far as replacing the muzzle and adding a hop-up, but I'm really curious to hear from Hasbro why they didn't put a hop-up in here and what the reasoning for that was. I suspect it was to keep the FPS rating, because when you do add a hop-up, you're going to lose 5 to 10% of your FPS just from hitting that hop-up and the ball spins as it leaves the barrel. However, you do get more range with the hop-up, and you do generally get a little more accuracy because rather than the ball coming out at whatever rotation it has, it gets a unified rotation, so it stays on target a little better. Another huge downside to having 6 D-cell batteries is the spin-up time. It's pretty slow, so we're gonna time this on screen here. I'm gonna push the button and go. To my ears, it sounds like that's taking about 3 seconds, but obviously we'll put on screen the real time there. That's a pretty slow windup. Now, of course, you can fire before you get to that full windup, but if you want maximum velocity and performance, you're gonna wanna wait for those to spin up. I can't wait to get this thing modded. My overall thoughts on Hyper are so far pretty good, actually. And I'm a bit surprised. I think this is very much a return to form for Hasbro of innovation, making something interesting and more compelling. I really feel like Ultra and Elite 2.0 were a bit of a cash grab and did not feel like of a good value to either the consumer or the modding community. And ultimately, the Ultra ammo type was just flawed from the start. This ammo type seems much more viable. It definitely is dense enough to fly farther than rival. It'll hit target faster than rival, and you can hold way more in a smaller amount of space. We are certainly going to be doing all the normal mods for this: switch plates, hop-up, triggers, and probably a hopper, depending on how this is all put together. But I'm really excited to dive into this blaster. I'm gonna give this 4 out of 5 stars. I don't think it's perfect, but it's definitely a really solid start for a brand new line. And right out of the gate, I think that's 3 pretty solid blasters in a new lineup. I think there's going to be a lot more coming, and we can expect to see pretty massive improvements from here on out. Because the thing to remember is it took 4.5 years to get to the Perseus, or 4 years, I guess, to get to the Perseus from launch. And the Perseus is probably the best flywheel blaster for the rival series that they've built. And here we're getting out of the gate nearly the same level. I don't think it's quite as tuned as the Perseus, mostly because of the feeding, accuracy, and ammo issues, but overall, I do like it. 4 out of 5 stars. We're definitely going to dive into these and get some more mod content coming. I've got a Spectrum mod guide in the works as well. And of course, the Proton Pack video is still needing to be filmed and worked on. We've been keeping pretty busy here getting into our new space. And while it's been 6 months, it can take a long time to settle a warehouse and really get organized and up and running. Until next time, I'm out of darts and apparently hyper rounds. Let's get going. That's going in the outtakes.